Hey everyone, it's Annabelle from Dollbelly Knits with the 5th installment and a set of tutorials on how I make my socks 2 at a time, toe up on 2 short circular needles. I'm at my kitchen countertop with my cup of coffee and pair of socks. And although I think the counter is super beautiful, I think it may also be a bit distracting. So I'm going to place this cutting board underneath. Bye bye, pretty countertop. Right, let's get down to business. I originally said that I wasn't going to record this part of the sock construction since I'm basically following Jana from Purl Together's recipe for toe-up socks, and she has some great videos on this part of the sock, but they don't show how it's done on 2 short circular needles, and I don't think my OCD could take having an incomplete series. So I decided to do a pair of socks real quick to show you how I create the heel flap and turn the heel. I'm knitting these socks using Premier brand wool-free self-striping sock yarn in the colorway Golden Field. I'm also using 3.75mm needles, which I know are huge for sock knitting, but that's what works for me with this particular yarn. I even threw in a little slip stitch patterning just to shake it up a bit, which I don't normally do with variegated yarns. I like to let the colors of the yarn do the talking, but I think it works with this shade. Okay, so this is the 5th video. In the first video, I show how I cast on the socks and how I wrap the yarn so I get this line in the toe area that is much like the line on a pair of socks you can get at the store. The second video shows how I make the short rows using wraps and turns to shape the toe cap of the sock. The third video shows how I pick up the wraps and a little secret I have to keep the sock from having holes in it, which I didn't do with this pair, as you can see here, since I was trying to do this on the quick. So make sure you watch that video so you don't have holes in the toes of your socks. And the fourth video shows how I just knit round and round on 2 circulars. So in this 5th video, I'm at the point where I'm ready to separate the stitches so I can knit the heel flap and turn the heel. In a pair of top-down socks, the heel flap rests on the back of your heel, where your Achilles tendon is, and most patterns call for using 1/3 of your stitches for this. In this pair of socks, the heel flap is on the underside of your foot, actually touching your heel, and I'll be using half of my stitches. The sock is already divided that way, so why make a fuss about a few extra stitches? I've not noticed any issues with sizing myself, and like I've said, I'm making these videos just to give you another option for making socks. Feel free to move stitches around and knit the sock your way. Okay, so when I'm ready to start the heel flap, instead of knitting with the front needle, I'll be knitting with the back needle and leaving the front one to hang, kind of like we did for casting on. In this position, you can see that I'll be purling across the row to keep the stitches in pattern. But I'll be slipping the first stitch and then purling through the back loop on the last stitch. Slip the first stitch, pull your work a bit snug, and then purl on over to the last stitch. In order to purl through the back loop, Instead of putting your needle through the front of the work, right to left, you need to come at the stitch from the back and insert the needle from left to right. This was a new stitch to me when I found Jana's pattern about a year ago, so I had to Google it myself. You'll be able to see me do it again at the end of the next sock. Right, so when we are done the row, we flip the sock and we have all knit stitches to deal with. So I'm going to slip the first stitch, knit to the end, and knit through the back loop on the last stitch. And just like the purl through the back loop, you basically do the opposite of what you would do to knit a stitch normally. Normally you would insert the needle in the front of the work from the left to the right. When knitting through the back loop, you insert the needle in the back of the stitch from right to left. And again, you'll be able to see me do this stitch at the end of the next sock. We will slip the first stitch and purl or knit through the back loop of the last stitch for each row of the heel flap. This makes a very nice chain edging that will make it super easy to pick up stitches for the gusset. The number of rows you need to complete depends on the number of stitches you have. Right now I'm working with half of my stitches, which equals 26. So I will create 26 rows of the heel flap, alternating between purling and knitting before it's time to turn the heel. So however many stitches you are working with will determine the number of rows you need to complete before it's time to turn the heel. I'm going to go ahead and complete all my rows, and then I'll meet you back here for the turning of the heel. Okay, so I've done all my rows. You can see my fancy row counter I've got here. Now it's time to turn the heel. You can see the nice chain stitch edge we got from all the slip stitches and the through the back loop stitches that we made at the end of each row for the heel flap. I'm on the purl side of my work, so to start the heel turn, I'm going to slip the first stitch, and then I'm going to purl across half of my stitches plus 2 more. Again, I have 26 stitches, so that would be 13 plus 2 for a total of 15 stitches. Make sure you count the first slip stitch as part of your stitches. Then purl 2 together and then purl 1 more. Slip the remaining unworked stitches from the left to the right and repeat the same process with the second sock. After purling half plus 2 stitches, then purling 2 together and purling 1 more, leave the remaining stitches on the left needle and turn the work to the other side. Now with the knit side facing, we're going to slip the first stitch and knit 6 stitches. Then we will knit 2 together and knit 1 more stitch. Slip the remaining unworked stitches from the left to right, as well as the unworked stitches on the second sock. And then you can repeat this process on the second sock, turning the work when done knitting the required number of stitches. A pattern begins to form here, and it's pretty much a universal pattern for turning a heel, whether you're doing it toe up or cuff down. On the purl side of the work, you will slip the first stitch and purl to one stitch before the gap in the work. You'll easily recognize the gap in the fabric. It occurs because you purled 2 stitches together on the previous row. At the gap, you will purl those stitches together to close it up and cause the fabric to turn on itself, hence the term turning the heel. You do the same thing on the knit side. You slip the first stitch and then knit the last stitch before the gap. Knit 2 together to close the gap and knit 1 more. Additionally, you will find that the number of stitches needing to be worked to reach the last stitch before the gap will be an odd number on the purl side of the fabric and an even number on the knit side of the fabric. Like I said before, I did 6 stitches on the first side of the knitting, so then my purl side will be 7. When I flip it around again, it'll be 8 stitches, 9, etc. I'm going to show you a few more rows here so you can see the pattern. You'll know you're done turning the heel when you have closed the gap on each side of the fabric and there aren't any more stitches to knit or purl after you've done that, whether it's a purl two together or a knit two together. As you can see, you end up with this curved fabric, which is where your heel sits inside the sock. You also end up with a lot less stitches than you started with, but that's okay. We'll pick these up around the gusset area of the sock, that nice chain stitch area we created on the sides. And you can see how I do that in the next segment of this tutorial series, part 6, which is already available on the YouTube channel. I'll put a link for it in the end screen of the video. As always, if you're a longtime viewer, I really appreciate your support. If you are a new viewer, I would ask you to consider to become a subscriber. If you like what you see, give this video a thumbs up, and please feel free to leave comments in the comments section below about this video and perhaps other videos you might like to see in the future. Also, if you are a subscriber, don't forget to tap the little bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Until next time, take care and happy knitting!